All right, let's take a look at this next lecture. This is Congress in Action. We've talked a lot about how Congress is set up. We've talked a lot about how what Congress looks like, the laws, and how they get to that point in terms of redistricting and the powers of Congress and things like that. Now we got to see some faces, put some names and titles into the process, because ultimately the job is to pass bills, and ultimately the job is to get things from this body right here all the way up Pennsylvania Avenue, all the way up to the White House, so that, of course, the president can sign off on the bills. We know that there's two houses, the House over here, the larger chamber, and the Senate over here. So let's take a look at each one of these specifically so that we understand exactly what they do and who they are as Congress works towards passing bills for our country. So let's start with the House of Representatives. As you remember, all bills as a result of the Great Compromise dealing with money, taxes, spending must originate here in the House of Representatives. So there's a lot of power that the members of the House of Representatives hold, and the person who has the most power in that system is the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House comes from the party in power. In this case, it's the Republican Party today, and the Speaker of the House is elected from his or her peers in order to lead that party and lead that chamber moving forward. We'll learn a little bit more about the Speaker here. The Speaker of the House, like I said, is the leader of the party. The Speaker of the House is the presiding officer. So when congressmen or congresswomen make their speeches on the floor and advocate for bills or advocate for certain things, they address the Speaker of the House, because all things basically go through the Speaker of the House. And that's the chair that sits at the top, and as presiding officer, they address their speech by starting with Mr. Speaker, or in the case of Nancy Pelosi, when she was the Speaker of House, they would say Madam Speaker. The Speaker of the House is often characterized as a referee. If there's a rule question, they're the ones who solve it. If there's a procedural question, they're the ones who deal with the issues and make the final decision. They're also the gatekeeper. If somebody has an idea or a bill or a proposal, they're the ones who decide where it goes. They're also the ones who decide how much debate there is, whether or not to bury it in committee, whether or not to give it to a good committee to become a major priority for the leading party, or to bury something the opposing party is trying to do. And so in that way, the Speaker of the House is really a kingmaker as well. If you're on the good side of the Speaker of the House, you're of that person's political party, your work is most likely to get recognized, or more likely than the opposing party. If you've put in your time and you've been a good, loyal party member, the Speaker of the House can make a really, really good name for yourself by helping you, because that position is so powerful. That position is recognized as powerful because the Speaker of the House is second in line for the presidency. If the president dies, of course the vice president takes over. But if the president and vice president die and there is no one left in the executive branch to succeed them, then the Speaker of the House is next in line. So in order of succession, vice president takes over first, Speaker of the House would take over second, if needed. Now, the House of Representatives itself has its own organization underneath the Speaker. So you can see the Speaker of the House is more on the side of one political party because they're from a political party that's in control. So that person that's in control below the Speaker is called the Majority Leader. The Majority Leader is the floor manager, the person who runs the floor for the leading party in Congress. Underneath the Majority Leader, some people may call them the Assistant Majority Leader. A more appropriate title is called the Majority Whip. The Majority Whip is the arm twister, the one who makes sure everybody knows how their party should vote, or the one who goes out and counts to see how many votes they have to figure out if the bill will be passed or if it will be destined to failure. That arm twister role is very important. They have a lot of power. They report to the Majority Leader, and the Majority Leader reports directly to the Speaker of the House. And they often all work together, of the same party. The name whip comes from the idea that that person whips the party into shape. They whip them in line so that the party can advance that agenda that they've been elected on. Of course, then you have other party leaders as well, caucus leaders and other people of rank within the political party. there's not always only one party in the House of Representatives. There's always another minority party. And the same structure applies. There's the minority leader, elected by their peers, the minority whip, elected by their peers, still the arm twister, and then, of course, other party leadership. We have to remember that the United States Congress is a two-house Congress, so we know that the United States Senate is the other side of the coin. In the U.S. Senate's case, the presiding officer is the Vice President. Now, the Vice President is in a unique position because the Vice President is also a member of the executive branch. That's where the major function of the Vice President is. When the Vice President is not able to fulfill the duties as the presiding officer of the Senate, he or she will pass them off to the President pro tempore. Now, the President pro tempore serves in the Vice President's absence, so they are the temporary President of the Senate. Now, in terms of powers, the President of the Senate is really a procedural issue. They are not elected to the Senate. They serve in the executive branch, unlike, of course, the Speaker of the House, who is a member of the House of Representatives. They have procedural requirements, but really their role is, if there is a tie, if there's a 50-50 tie, then they step in and they break the tie when necessary. The President pro tempore, like I said, serves in the Vice President's absence, and usually, by custom, is the longest-serving senator from the leading party of that chamber. They are third in line to the presidency if needed. So if the President dies, and the Vice President dies, and the Speaker of the House dies, God forbid, the President pro tempore of the Senate takes over. So when we look at the Senate, the structure is relatively the same. There's a majority leader. In this case, Democrats control the Senate at this point. They have a majority leader, they have a majority whip, they have other party leaders. Just like on the other side of the aisle in the United States Senate, there are the minority leaders, or the minority leader, and then there's the minority whip, Same thing, the arm twister, the person who counts the votes, makes sure that people know how to vote, make sure that they get whipped into shape in terms of how the party is going to view a bill. All of this put together has to have those two chambers come together to produce legislation and bills so that they can send it off to the President. Now, let's understand a little bit about the House of Representatives. You can see here, this is Speaker of the House, John Boehner. He's a Republican. The Republicans have the majority in the House. Therefore, he was elected because of his leadership by his peers to be the Speaker of the House. On the Republican side, you also have the majority leader. In this case, it's a man named Eric Cantor. The majority whip, the arm twister, is a man named Kevin McCarthy. On the Democratic side, you have the minority leader, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi used to be the Speaker of the House when the Democrats controlled. Nancy Pelosi is now the minority leader elected by her peers. The minority whip is Representative James Clyburn. Again, that's only one half of the story. If we go over to the U.S. Senate is led by Vice President Joe Biden, but because Joe Biden is the executive branch side of things, Senator Daniel Inouye is the President pro tempore. Serves as the procedural director, the President of the Senate, in the Vice President's absence. The Democrats control the Senate, and so the majority leader is Democratic Senator Harry Reid from Nevada. The majority whip is Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois. And the Republican leadership is the minority leader, Mitch McConnell, a Republican from Kentucky. And the minority whip is a man named John Kyle, a senator from Arizona. All of them have served their time. All of them were elected by their peers. They're the ones who manage the party's negotiations, the party's legislation, the party's ideas as the work of Congress moves forward. Now, Congress itself has within it some consistencies in terms of how you get to those positions. Those are always decided by the seniority rule. The simple term, simple concept, the longer you serve, the better jobs and assignments you get. Because most of the work is done in committee in Congress, the longer you've been in Congress, the more powerful committee you get. The more powerful committee you get, the more say you get in bills that get to the floor. The more say you get in bills that get to the floor, the more power you have in government. It rewards longevity. It rewards people who have been there, paid their dues, served their time in the chamber, and they get leadership positions. Now, critics say that doesn't do much for change. People who've been there the longest might need to be the ones who leave first. The people who've been there the longest might be the reason why Congress isn't getting things done. But such are the rules. It does help in terms of continuity, but it also doesn't help if people want to change Washington, because you still have people like those on the bottom. You have the longest-serving Democratic senator, longest-serving Republican senator, longest-serving Democratic representative, longest-serving Republican representative in the House of Representatives. These men, mostly, of course, always men, have some continuity. They've been in positions of power for well over 50 years, many of them. But it's a question of change, and it's a question of which is more effective. Long-serving and long-standing leadership, continuity, or the idea that maybe we have a broken system and the seniority rule doesn't do anything to help that. When you look at it all taken together, it's a complex process which we're going to keep breaking apart as we go forward. But you've reached the end of this roller coaster ride. What I'd like you to do, because you reached the end of this, now you know what the assignment is. It's sort of a pop assignment, unexpected, unannounced, but you need to respond to the question that's posed below this video in the Google form, and that's going to be due by class time on Wednesday. That's something that after you've watched this video, it's simple and straightforward. Write your little response, click the questions, submit it, we'll call that assignment done. Thanks so much. Write down any questions you might have about this process so that you can go over this in class in the first 10 minutes, and we'll see you next time.